Doctor Who. The Overrated Stories. 2. Human Nature. Come one, come all, to watch, or listen, to me eviscerate this most painfully awful of all supposed Who classics. The two-part Human Nature. I refuse to call it by two titles. If we did that with the Hartnell stories we'd be here all week, especially with Dalek's master plan, and I fail to see why New Who should get special treatment. Was, of course, based on a book for the New Adventures range which, while still overrated, was actually fairly good. Amusingly, the translation to the screen however resulted in possibly the most overrated New Who story of them all, which is saying something. I'm writing this barely coherent rant, I mean review, largely from memory as I haven't actually been able to sit through the whole thing for about 7 years at least. I've tried, believe me I have, but I tend to get to about 10 or 15 minutes in and either A. Fall asleep. B. Decide to watch the good two-part story from Series 3 instead, or C. Start having thoughts of self-harming. One of the worst parts of Human Nature, of course, is how extraordinarily bloody dull it all is. My God, it's boring. Doctor Who meets Merchant Ivory was never going to be a good idea, no matter how many killer scarecrows you throw in to try to freak out the kiddies. The relationship between Tennant's drippy human doctor and the even more drippy Joan is as tedious as soppy shit like this can get, and is more effective on me than most sleeping pills. What's that, you say? It's very well made and all that. Oh sure, it looks great but, really, who gives a stinking pile of offal when it's this yawn-worthy? The fact that it's also very tedious is not, however, human nature's biggest problem, which is something of a shocker given that boring is usually the biggest crime Who can commit. Its biggest problem isn't even the sheer stupidity of changing the Doctor's motivation for this whole human malarkey from, in the book, simply being curious and nasty Time Lord hunting alien family coming along at a most inopportune moment, to, actual knowing said aliens are after him. Bizarrely, they only live about a month or something, but rather than doing the sensible thing, you know, like holding up in the TARDIS for a few weeks with the Daleks' master plan, the war games and trial of a Time Lord plus lots and lots of pizzas, he decides that hiding out at an early 20th century school and wiping his memory, while leaving Martha and the humans all around him completely defenseless, is really the best way to go. Even for the 10th Doctor, this is fucking stupid on a whole new level. No, the worst thing is the bit that follows this. The ending. Where we find out that, hey, the Doctor wasn't hiding and putting lots of people's lives at risk because the aliens are so gosh darn scary and he's suddenly become a coward, but he was actually being kind, because if they caught up with him he'd go completely psycho on them or something. He then proceeds to torture at least one of them for all eternity just 3 stories after trying to save the Daleks and just 2 stories before he blubs like a massive Jessie over the death of his arch-nemesis, who's just murdered millions of people and tortured his best friend's family for months. Making the Doctor a complete pussy, as was so often the case in the Tennant era, is one thing, and one might think one thing that was bad enough all on its own. But Human Nature makes him both a psychopathic sadist and a complete and total fucking moral hypocrite to boot. What an asshole. If there was ever one defining moment that left me regarding the 10th Doctor as a massive, massive brick, this is it. Human Nature. It's boring, it's stupid and it's morally indefensible, but David Tennant's lip wobbles a lot toward the end, and that's clearly what matters to the people who regard this piece of utter, retarded shit as a classic.